All eyes are on Ian at this hour as the storm is forecast to be a major hurricane approaching the west coast of Florida. Hey everybody, I'm Mike Naso here with this afternoon update, Sunday afternoon on Tropical Storm Ian. Taking a look at it right there, getting better organized here very close to Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. It is still a minimal tropical storm. It has not been able to strengthen as rapidly as some of the computer models were showing, but it is forecast to become a very dangerous Category 3-4 hurricane as it moves across western Cuba and into the Gulf of Mexico. Here is the latest on Tropical Storm Ian. This is as of 5 p.m. Ian was at 16.2, 80.3, and that puts it about south of Jamaica, south of the Cayman Islands, moving west-northwest at 12. Winds of only 45 miles per hour, so it is still a minimal tropical storm. And it is having trouble mixing out some mid-level dry air and getting its circulation center structured just right. But when it does, we are going to see intensification. The forecast takes it west-northwest, very close to the Cayman Islands, and then over western Cuba as a hurricane, and then a stronger hurricane, and then into the southeast Gulf of Mexico, finally making landfall somewhere along the Big Bend, Panhandle, west coast of Florida by Wednesday, Thursday. But there is a lot of uncertainty as far as, is it on the left edge of this cone, more towards areas there where Mobile would have to watch it, or is it on the right edge of this cone to where it slams into southwest Florida and the Keys? We do have a tropical storm watch in effect now for the lower Florida Keys, including the dry Tortugas, and we also have a hurricane warning in effect for western Cuba as well as some of the Cayman Islands there. Grand Cayman, the expectation is that this thing will be a hurricane very close to you guys and could bring those hurricane force winds. Here's another look at the visible satellite, and you can see the center there. It's getting better organized. It's still trying to mix out that mid-level dry air like I talked about, but again, overall it has a very favorable upper level pattern here, getting that classic dangerous shape to it, and over these very hot waters it is expected to take off. Now the problem we're having forecasting Ian here is that there's a discrepancy in the computer models. The GFS model, as well as the HWRF and some of the GFS ensembles and the Canadian model, they want to make Ian a hurricane, boom, boom, really fast, really strong over western Cuba or even over areas there of the Yucatan Channel, and then bring it into the Gulf, maybe as a Category 4 or 5, but then just weaken it like mad. As it interacts with this trough, it weakens, it sucks in drier air, and then it just makes landfall as a very minimal hurricane at best in areas there of the Big Bend and the Panhandle. On the other hand, the UK Met model here wants to take it right into southwest Florida. The European model, very, very dangerous, takes it as a strengthening hurricane right into the area there near Sarasota and Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg, Clearwater. That would be a very, very nasty strike. So we have that discrepancy between the models further west and weaker and further east and stronger. Now what I can tell you based on this weather pattern is as this trough pulls on out, and you see the cooler weather here in areas of the Midwest and the Northeast, as that pulls on out, this high is going to build in over areas of, say, Minnesota and over the Great Lakes and plains and move down, and that is what is pumping that cool, dry air on some of these models into Hurricane Ian. However, if it ends up moving to the east and just gets captured by the trough and jets itself over Florida, it is overland faster, has less time to become a weaker hurricane, and might be a much more strong, serious impact, and obviously would be further east, affecting the peninsula. So that's what we're dealing with right now, the discrepancy with the models, and that has a lot to do with the future track and intensity. There is a big difference between a Category 1 making landfall near Apalachicola and a Category 4 making landfall near Fort Myers. Huge difference, and we just don't know right now. It's, okay, I will say this, it's troubling that the storm has taken so long to come together, because the models that do take it further west and weaker in the long run, they have it stronger in the short term. Whereas models like the European, which are slamming Tampa, Sarasota as a strong hurricane, they're keeping it weak for the next several hours until it finally gets its act together over Cuba and the southeast Gulf, and boom. And so it's kind of following what the European model is showing as of right now, and we have seen throughout this morning and this afternoon a shift in these models towards the west, or I'm sorry, towards the east, from the west to the east. So they're starting to come back a little bit, less and less for the Panhandle and more for the Big Bend and western Florida. Nevertheless, rainfall is going to be a huge threat. This is going to get worse and worse. It's going to be a very wet week in Florida and along the northeast Gulf Coast, to say nothing of the potential for storm surge. I can't mention this enough. We have been so lucky on the west coast of Florida. Hurricane Charlie 2004, that was a Category 4, but it was so small when it came into areas there of Charlotte Harbor, it didn't have a big storm surge. Hurricane Irma hit Cuba, kind of dawdled around the Keys, and it came at a strange angle into Naples to where we had a reverse surge with offshore winds, and they didn't get that water pile up. This area is very susceptible to a high storm surge, and we are concerned that Ian, even if it's weakening upon landfall, will expand its wind field and drive a lot of that water into the west coast of Florida. So again, this is a very serious hurricane threat. Right now, still a tropical storm, but not for long. I'll be back with continuing updates over the coming days as we watch Ian start to strengthen in the Caribbean, on track for becoming a dangerous hurricane for the Caymans, Cuba, and then Florida, somewhere, some intensity. We just don't know for sure yet. Stay tuned for further updates.